parts of the whole process.
Yeah.
That goes back to my school analogy. Like in school, you get to a point where you study and
Can't
study.
study anymore?
You're just like...
Or you just don't study like me.
No, you're just like... Yeah, at some point, you got to just say, screw it. I either know this or I don't. Which, Dane, at what point do you get to that point? Probably never.
I never feel that,
Yeah.
Never feel fulfilled.
I bet you were a better student than I was, too.
Well, I mean, I love this more than any other class I took in school, so.
That's fair.
KT, we're picking you up here with, a month or so. I know we're going to do something today in the second half that's a lot of fun, and I'm really excited you're here to be a part of that.
Well, see, my journey, it gets to a point, especially at this point where you go, pro days are happening and all that stuff, and you go, okay, I think that matches what I saw and what I know.
Right.
And then for this year, my journey's been horrible with linebackers, but I've never really been great at linebackers. But one thing that I always go back to is I guys too much because I don't want it to affect how I feel. But then I also remember, at least for me, that there really is no Mount Everest here. So no matter what I think about a guy, that guy, so you're always going to miss on someone, I think. And then you always have a guy that
and it follows you for 30 years of your career.
See, and there are a few guys who you call them pet cats. You know, guys you'll go to bat for.
Yeah.
And you go, oh my God, he ran an 8.08 on a 3-cone drill. What am I going to do, Jalen Ferguson from Louisiana Tech?
Yeah. I think that, and KT's absolutely right here. I think that we get into a situation. I had a scout stop by, as Dave can attest, as everybody can attest. I got a huge candy bowl on a desk behind where I sit.
Yeah, Dane knows about it better than I do.
Dane's a scout through and through. KT will eat some candy on you too. He'll stand up in the middle of the film and start just munching on candy right in the middle.
I gave him chocolate for Lent, so it's been rough.
It's been rough?
Yeah.
Well, the scouts love chocolate. The scouts just love it. They get nervous and they like to eat. Then another story for another day. But, you get to a point in time, though, like I said, where you're trying to, you're evaluating these guys. And you're kind of you're saying, okay, do I have this guy right? And I had a scout come by, grab a couple pieces of chocolate from me last night, and he goes, I don't want to listen to anybody tell me about these players. He goes, that's the problem. He goes, I want to evaluate these players, and then I want to go into a meeting. I don't need somebody to confirm it for me yet. Don't tell me about the player. That's like when I watch film with KT and Jeff. I watch these guys, or you might have watched guys too, and you're like going, I'm not gonna tell you about this guy. You tell me what you think about this guy. Because sometimes you get, scouts sometimes like, oh, well, this is what I think about this guy. Yeah, and then you haven't done the player, and now you're thinking, man, that guy's usually right about players. So you don't want to get influenced by that,
It's confirmation bias, 100%.
Yeah. So it might be my phone doing that, guys.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
That was your phone doing that.
Sorry about that. That was
okay,
on Periscope. Welcome to Periscope.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's kind of one of those things you have to be careful. I don't I'm with you. I don't think there's enough tape you can watch. I think I'm always trying to watch, even on draft day. I think I'm going to try and watch down to the bitter end. Watch some more guys. And you're right about the test thing, though, too.
I'm just going to roll up and say, we got it or we don't.
You got it or we don't. Okay, guys, KT mentioned this pro days are kind of pro days are happening right now. We got some big days that have been happening. Alabama, Notre Dame, Ohio State, just to name a few. Is there, we've seen some guys, we've seen some guys run some times that, I'm talking about a guy like Josh Jacobs, the running back from Alabama. And all of a sudden, when does the film, and I want to kind of get into this for you guys when you're watching tape, and when does the film just totally take out anything to do with the work? I know KT was mentioned about the Louisiana Tech kid, Ferguson. But when does the film just say, you know what, Jacobs runs a 4.63, I'm fine with that. He's still my number one back. When is that in your head? When does that start to happen? When does that, when do you just say, enough? I'm not going to look at that time. Holyfield's that way for me. Holyfield from Georgia, the running back.
Brian bit my head off yesterday when I told him about Holyfield's time at the Georgia Pro Day because he just goes, turn on the tape, Dave. Just turn on the tape.
Yeah.
Tell me. Just go ahead and tell me.
Yeah. See, to me, I get to a point in time where I watch that tape, and and you and I get into discussion about Jawan Williams from Vanderbilt. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking that you're like, well, damn, bro, this the tape shows you he gets run by sometimes. But I think he ran a 4.54 the other day, which made me feel a little bit better at Vanderbilt. But when do we do this? When do we say, God, we just don't get influenced by the numbers here?
I don't watch anywhere near as much tape as the rest of y'all.
Yeah.
But and you tell me if I'm wrong, but the way I look at it is if the drills are just showing you something vastly
Ferguson's 808.
well,
yeah.
so, case in point, like if they're showing you something, if the tape is showing you something that the numbers don't reflect, that's what bothers me. So like Josh Jacobs running a 4.6, I don't care because he's not blowing past defenders on his tape anyway. That's not what he does. If a Reggie Bush type of running back who's just breaking free into secondaries play after play is running a 4.6,
that Penn State guy gets fed sometimes.
that scares me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's Jalen Ferguson scares me a little bit.
Sanders from Penn State. Yeah.
If your tape tells me that you're like 3 steps quicker than the guys you're going against, but it doesn't reflect in the numbers, and then you're like, well, he does play at Louisiana Tech. He's not going up against like the best prospects. That worries me. Whereas Josh Jacobs bowling over SEC defenses but not having elite speed doesn't really bother me.
And it really depends on the position, too. You talk about corner, you talk about Joel Williams, you talk about running back. Big difference. To me, corner is a stopwatch position where you care about straight line speed. You care about the caliber of athlete that player is. Where with running back, so much of it is instinct, so much of it is that short area quickness. I don't really care about 40 yards. I care about what can you do in 3 yards. And so for Josh Jacobs, in running backs as a whole, Le'Veon Bell ran a 4.6. Kareem Hunt ran a 4.6. There's plenty of running backs in the NFL who did not test really well, but they're talented, productive running backs to the pros. And I think Josh Jacobs is going to be another one. Now, some of the agility times I was surprised, or the jumps, like a 9.4 in the broad, I believe. Like that was a little surprising. I thought he had a little more juice in his lower body than that. Right? That was a little surprising. But nonetheless, I mean, he's 25 overall, my boy, I think. Does that bother you at all? Well, no. And with running backs, I feel the same. Like, I don't really, the numbers don't matter. What makes me feel that is when I watch another running back who intrigues you. That was Miles Sanders, who, to me, is my running back, too, from Penn State. But then, like, running back 2 or running back 1? Running back 2. Okay. I still like Jacobs number 1. One thing I like about Jacobs, if you're considering taking him in the first round, not a lot of wear and tear on his body. Yeah. I feel pretty good. Like, Travion Williams, I like if you're taking him on day 3. That's the A&M running back. If you're taking him on day 3, I like that. I'm not making him my feature back. Josh Jacobs, I'm making him my guy. And I don't have a lot of, there's not a lot of wear and tear on the body. I like that. Well, you went on have written some reports and talked about some things, and we mentioned Ferguson. So, and Dave talked about it though. In the 808 on the 3-cone, you see stiffness when you watch him play. Right. Is that the thing in now? I mean, having to drop him, or do you feel like you have him right on your board with the stiffness considered, or did the 808 make you think about dropping him around? The second line of my report, hip tightness shows when it's like a bang. So, we saw that on tape. He's a speed to power level. That's what he does best. But it's kind of
Has had no episodes, or his family has no episodes.
Yeah.
This team told me they have Sweat teamed as a low risk, whereas Hurst was off their board.
Yep.
He's had an episode and a legit blockage. Sweat will need yearly checkups. So that's kind of where they're at right now with all that information. So I think that's a positive thing. I think when that news first came out, I was a little bit concerned because again, I was cheering for the player.
practices, get these times, meet these players. It's just another step in the process.
Okay, when we come back, we're going to hit some Twitter on the 20, so stay tuned.
Kaboo, Texas is 3 days, 6